Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, are Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And Dr. Squee.
An animated dragon.
Yeah, because we're here to talk about not one, not two, but 3 different animated Star Trek shows. And of course, there only are ever been 3 animated Star Trek shows. There was never a... We'll let that go.
Well, and it actually, it's quite interesting. I think the home of animated Star Trek now is definitely Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus, the home of Star Trek, which actually fucking works.
No, we've had to.
Yeah, that works. I'm just saying.
Star Trek the animated series. It's not on Paramount.
Yeah,
it's on Netflix.
No, yeah, that's a good point in the UK.
So now they're getting Prodigy as well. They've got more animated Star Trek shows than Paramount.
And in my experience, 100% success rate at fucking loading the episodes, which is something that Paramount could also learn from.
And the other animated show, then, the Very Short Treks, isn't available on any streaming services except YouTube. But that's
great marketing for your streaming platform, isn't it?
Yeah, we've gone into this many times. We won't bore you again with it, but
am I correct, including the Very Short Treks, which sort of, as well as including the other 2 animations that we've got in this Lower Decks and the animated series, it's got 4 different breeds of Star Trek in there, I think.
Yeah,
so mentioned Discovery. Okay. They've got the 2 which we've already mentioned, and Riker from Next Generation.
Yeah, true.
So we've got 4 Star Trek franchises in one here.
Yeah, and it was a good fun one, this one. The bit we're talking about Walk, Don't Run, the last episode of the Very Short Treks. And I really thought it was going to take a very different turn at one point when Scotty's talking about the holodeck that's not a holodeck, and Tendi defends herself by saying, well, we do this, that, and the other. And he's like, hey, and you do an orgy. And then he goes... I've got your orgy scene right here. And he starts undoing his belt. And you're like, oh, here we go.
And because he's Scots, where he's used to not wearing anything under the kilt, he does the same under his trousers. You just know.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like the Catwoman's bra kind of flying off as well. I mean, I'm not sure what I was most worried about, seeing Scott get it on, or Scotty having a convincing Scottish accent. I didn't appreciate that. Where did that come from? Come on. If you're gonna replace the mighty James Doohan, make the accent a little bit dodgy.
Well, it's bringing it in line with the Strange New Worlds, where they've got an actual Scots actor, you know.
But I'm saying this is the animated one, and like, if you're going to do the animated series, the original animated version of the original series, it has to be a poor Scottish accent. I'm sorry. Like, he had his moments, and don't get me wrong, he did better for accents than I like. He had a better range of accents than I ever will. But let's face it, it wasn't exactly the most, accurate.
But if it's the animated series, James Doohan did do every 3rd voice in that whole show.
Yeah.
And the others were done by Majel Barrett. And that was pretty much
this episode.
Pretty much it. Anyway, so I liked Scotty's that may have been my favourite Scotty line ever. I'll show you your orgy. I've got your orgy scene right here. Oh, just horrible.
We know Scots people. Let's face it. Yeah. They're a bunch. They're not worried of kind of a bit of a naughty.
Careful.
Appreciate. Hey, look, my whole name is Scottish, not Dr. Squee, the other one. But like, my whole name's Scottish. Like Ian Shaw. Ian's even spelled I-A-I-N, and Shaw is a Scottish name. So yeah, I'm not going to diss Scots. I'm proud to be linked to such a noble race. But let's face it, they can get a bit naughty, which I appreciate too. But I just love the fact that this one starts up like this whole Very Short Treks was done in celebration of the animated series. Is it 30 years or 40 years? How old is it? 50. Sorry, good Jesus, 50 years. just to make us all feel old, but it's turning 50 years, and this one just opens up straight up. You've got Tendi going. I love that she just goes, "Hey, I'm Tendi from Lower Decks, not from the Cerritos. I'm just from Lower Decks." It's great. And then she goes like, "Yeah, this is in celebration of the animated series turning 50." To open it like that, just to put it right in front.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, it's great.
I did like the digs they had at Filmation, like, no, it's a stylistic choice. And like, as someone who was a massive fan of the He-Man cartoons growing up, watching them back, you do notice a lot of these stylistic choices.
And it was also, you had like Tendi being the sweetest, nicest like member of any crew ever to grow Star Trek. She's so like, sweet and innocent, and everything she's saying they're just taking offense of. Is like, oh no, sorry, I meant we're standing on the shoulder of giants. Oh, so you're calling us fat, are you?
Yeah, that was a bit of a leap by Scotty. Like, giant fat.
I think it just represents, like, we've all been in those conversations where whatever you say, it's usually, let's face it, when you're in an argument with your partner, and I'm not being gendered about it, like just any argument with your partner, when especially if you're in the wrong and they just want to take anything you're saying. It's like, I'm so sorry. Oh, weren't sorry at the time, were you? Like, it's, you know, there's nothing you could say. Oh, God, I'm just popping to the shops. Oh, you popping out the other day as well, weren't you? It's like, what? That doesn't even make sense to the argument. Yeah, well, serves you right.
It's one that, like, parents used to say that always baffled me, like, where they were going, what are you doing? Playing on my Xbox? I'll play on your Xbox you in a minute.
Yeah,
like, what?
I'll Xbox you.
Yeah.
Like, or like, I'll give you Xbox. Like, oh, good.
Yeah.
Well,
is it Christmas already?
Billy Connolly used to have a joke about that, didn't he? And he's going, I'll make you smile on the other side of your face. He goes, what you gonna do? Slash me.
Yeah. And yes, I mean, that one's good fun. I think all in all, the very short treks, it's been a fun little experiment to do.
Sorry,
it's been
Jim,
entertaining.
We can't wrap it up just yet. Come on. You had a Riker turning up with a trombone, and it turned into a musical. I mean, come on. Like,
yeah.
You can't get more paradigmatic of Star Trek than to blend all these different styles, to get all these different worlds together, and then just have Riker turn up with a trombone. Yeah,
just turn into a musical number.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. It was, I mean, we had a joke last week about Riker wanting a bone, and here he turns up with his bone in this episode. So
and his bone extends as he gets excited about things.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
And Sulu was very impressed by it as well.
And I almost forgot my favorite part. Jesus, like, you've got Scotty. Like, Scotty was always the favorite of mine from the original series. Just, I loved him. It's like, I can possibly do that, Captain. Like, it'll take 8 hours. You got 5 minutes. I've already done it. You know, it's like, it's just genius, just wonderful. And to have him, like, in this episode, not only getting a little bit sexy, you know, like threatening to undo his trousers, but it's like, when Tendi's going, it's like, oh, you're pretty cute. It's to Scotty. No one, like, they never give it to Scotty. It's always like Kirk. And then if it's not Kirk, it's a joke that it's like, oh, actually, no, I meant Spock sexy. It's like, Scotty finally getting his due. The handsome motherfucker he is. Like, him in the original series, especially like when he was all svelte and everything, he's a handsome man. I feel like he gets maligned in
well, it was that time when he got it on with that woman and she turned out to be Jack the Ripper or something. That sort of thing scars
God, you get
for
up with one
time.
woman that's Jack the Ripper and you never hear the end of it. I'm just sick of this.
I want to I want to cover that episode at some point. I actually I like the idea of that episode, but anyway, we'll get to it one day.
Just very quickly. First of all, kind of well done. It was Elliot who suggested the kind of linked episode today. And while we're in there, like, just Tendi in this one reminded me, because I was looking through the titles of the animated ones. We've got a couple of kind of nice ones lined up. Like, if we get an Orion-centric one, there's the Pirate Orion or something, the Orion Pirate. There's one literally named that. We've got to remember, like, the animated.
Yeah, the Pirates of Orion. Yeah.
There's some really good episodes in the animated series.
It's one
there's some very silly episodes as well, but there's some very good ones at the same time.
And some ones which were clearly drug influenced.
And I think this is only the third time we've gone to the animated series.
We haven't gone there often.
We've enjoyed doing them when we have. So
Yeah.
Anyway, let's have a look at Lower Decks then. So the episode Caves, which another
Cave.
one. I thought it was Caves.
No, it's the cave.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was the cave. I could have sworn it was the cave.
I'm not sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah, now you've said both of them. I thought it was the cave, maybe. I think it's the cave.
I thought it was
Either
the
way.
cave.
Okay, we'll go with the cave. We'll check later. We're so professional.
I'm sure someone's watching who will correct us.
I mean, yeah.
Correct you.
This is another great example, though, of how, for me, this was such a great time. This was a really fun episode, one of my favorites of this series. I loved just seeing the four of them together, just having kind of a bit of a fun episode.
Yeah.
They broke from the main plot. But it does kind of another one where it highlights. There are so many moments where if this was series 1 or series 2 kind of Lower Decks, I think you would have seen a lot more kind of back references, like, the one where they're getting old, like, there's no mention of the Deadly Years from the original series, which there's so many
selection from TNG.
There's so many ones which you would have referenced series 1, which, like, it's fine, stylistic choice.
I think part of it is when it first started, it was referencing it all sorts because it finding its feet and all that. But I think now they just do it without them actually referencing it all the time because they've realised that we're good enough to actually get what they're doing.
I know, but like some of their references, they were so if you know, but if you don't, got anything. Like,
I think it's just comfortable in its own skin, isn't it?
It's found its own fate. It doesn't mind referencing, but it doesn't need that. Like, obviously, in the first season, you almost had a writer's room where every sentence had to reference another episode of Star Trek, but they've obviously found themselves comfortable writing for these characters and its own stories that it doesn't need that anymore.
Look, I've got no problem with them kind of doing more to expand the characters, but I just like even just 2 or 3 episodes of series. It'd be lovely to get. I love like the one they did on the movies. Whoever thought we'd get an episode just on movie references? And I miss that. I do miss where it came from. Like I want a few of those.
I think there's a balance to be found, but I wouldn't mind a revisit of that sort of style at some point. Yeah. And you never know. Maybe we've got 2 episodes left this season. We don't know what we're going to see. But so the plot is they wind up in a cave and they have all these jokes about, it's a cave mission. And there's a lot of caves in Star Trek. I mean, we've talked about it was called Planet Hell, wasn't it? The set that they had that was shared by TNG and DS9 and Voyager used it later on.
Probably Enterprise as well.
I think we most recently saw it in the Move Along Home episode. Shap 4 or whatever is definitely the Planet Hell set.
I mean, they even the slightly more opaque reference they have in here is when Boimler goes, I think it's Mariner says it's like, all these kind of caves just always look the same, and it's like it's obviously a reference to the fact it is always the same caves, which is rather nice. I did like that one, but again, like series 1, that would have been punched up a lot more like that.
You could have had this looks like exactly the cave that Wesley Crusher had to fight the thing in that episode where it was testing him and it was never explained why. Anyway,
that must have been a Planet Hell. They would have.
Yeah, that was just bizarre. It was quite a good episode, but it made no sense when you think about it.
No, it made no sense. That was like, Final Mission, wasn't it?
Yeah, why have you got to fight this thing? What is its purpose? And you fought it and got the water, and that was it. There was no sort of reveal. It
was a very odd episode.
Not only are you 100% right, but at the same time, I just love it because it's just like it's Wesley and Picard together.
Yeah,
it's just beautiful in it.
You know what? We're turning into Lower Decks now because if you want to hear our thoughts on that, check out the Road to Picard season that we did a couple of years ago, and you'll find us covering that particular episode. I do like when Mariner says, the evil will be lurking now. And again, that's that's drawing on this idea that, okay, if you're caught in a cave, something bad's going to happen, because otherwise there wouldn't be an episode about it. So,
and you also reference as soon as they get into a cave that the communicators stop working, because how many times has that happened?
yeah, and they have that great line where they say, "Oh, rocks always beat technology."
Yeah,
and it's true.
And even though they may not say like they may not kind of point out all the references, God, the amount of different episodes they get to do, because they kind of do it in flashbacks, but flashbacks are stuff we've never seen, so it's it's not a Shades of Grey. Even though we did discuss that at one stage, like it's not quite a Shades of Grey,
just to be evil.
Like, yeah. But yeah, no, I love the fact they managed to bring in so many different types of genres of Star Trek episode.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the running thread is that Tendi wants to talk about this time they got stuck in a turbo lift, but like, no, that won't help us because we're stuck in a cave, not a turbo lift.
Which is interesting, is that's the main episode, that previous episode that's referenced. And that's actually the first episode of Lower Decks.
Yeah.
That they're referencing all the way with it.
Yeah, and it just kept on making me think, because before we landed on the partner episode we did, I kept on thinking of like the one where Picard gets stuck in the lift, just because he talks about it so much, even though they don't go to it.
Yeah, I mean, well, they do go to it eventually.
Yeah, no, sorry, throughout the episode, it's just really mentioned at the, or really explored at the end, but it's mentioned throughout.
But we start with Boimler and his flashback. And this is where the idea of the Vendorians are introduced. We get this guy who's a mega Vendorian fan, and his answer to everything is it must be the Vendorians.
Well, no, it's not just the Vendorians, he's a conspiracy nut.
He is a conspiracy nut, yeah.
Because Boyle has to point out, Picard is not a hologram, but the AMH from Voyager is.
That was a good line.
The Battle of Wolf 359 did happen, which is, it's a bit having a dig at the conspiracy theorists we see in the real world now, isn't it? You know, but...
and it's oh god, it was just like it was almost too realistic. It's like, oh my god, no! Like you could think of a few people are acquainted with who've gone down that rabbit hole.
No, absolutely. And when they find that vehicle that they could escape on, and he's like, no, it's a Vendorian.
So it's like these conspiracy theorists are trapping us in a hell world which we can't escape, which is sort of like catching fire because we're not really paying attention to stuff we should. I can't think of any parallel to the real world, but it's just mating, really.
Yeah, like you say, there's nothing. It's definitely not.
I can't think of anything.
It's definitely not an allegory for our times, because Star Trek's never done that. So anyway, the punchline to all this is, it turns out it actually is the Vendorians. So, a stopped clock's right twice a day, as they say. So the conspiracy guy got it right.
Got it right for once.
And it's going like, what? No, I mean, I knew all along.
And I like the fact that the Vendorians are impressed by how much of a fan he is, and that's what ultimately saves them, and they end up having this sit-down meal with them. And that they let him go because he's such a big fan, which is good.
That's lovely.
And then we move on to Rutherford.
It's just like how Rutherford comes out with it, and they're all there doing the bits in the cave, and he goes, cave reminds me of when he had a baby with Dr. Tano a couple of weeks ago. It's what? What do you mean you had a baby?
What? I didn't mention you. No.
Why wouldn't you mention something like that you had a baby?
Well, because it happens so often. I mean, it happened to Janeway in Paris, and
anyone who has kids will recognize this moment as well. Because, I'll speak to I've spoken to my stepdaughter before, from when I was married. And she goes like, and so now we've kind of this was a few years ago. It was like, now we've kind of closed on the house. I go, what? And they spent over a year trying to close this house. There was kind of lost emails and lost trails. They were trying to get hold of someone because then they moved into a block of flats. So, they had to have someone sign off on it from there, blah, 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 taking ages. And then it's like, now we've closed on the things what? I thought I told you. No. So this is just very
Yeah, I mean, I think with something like that, it's a case of like I remember when I was buying a house, and it was like because there's that much anxiety involved in actually getting the bloody thing. It's all you talk about. Then when it's actually done, it's just kind of like, oh, and you forget to. And all these people that you've been bending their ear for years about it, you forget to tell them. But yeah, Rutherford. I think it's just because this happens quite often on Starfleet ships. It's not an uncut. It's like it'd be like saying, "Oh, I can't believe you didn't tell me that you went down somewhere and scanned some minerals." Like, you know, it's that run of the mill that you randomly have a baby.
And I love the fact that it's like the Doctor starts kind of warming up to him, and then he goes like, "Oh, so I'm the first engineer you like? Fuck off!"
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But
up to the baby.
It does all get sorted out, and we get the other alien that's in the pool in the middle, who's got its own baby as well. So,
and it also made me think because, like, in this episode, they not only have him, he uses pieces of torch in the beginning, and he uses it for something else and everything. I've never before wanted an episode where he meets LaForge more. Like, I just want LaForge to be really pissed off his visor doesn't do as many things. Hey, I can scan for life forms. Like, yeah, so does mine, and it will also send the results straight to sickbay or something, you know.
Do you remember that episode of the original series where they went, "Oh, we've hooked in a camera to Geordie's visor so we can see"?
That was first season.
Yeah, it was first season, and it were crap. Like, they had to be going, "So what's that, Geordie's?" "Oh, that's Riker. That's what it looks like." Like, why have we done this again? This is not helping anybody.
No.
So yeah, I think Geordie would want Rutherford's visor more than his own. But
I don't know. I don't know why I've never really thought about it. But just all I could think of after seeing him play about with his thing was like, God, those two, they would be naturals to meet. Like, they're both engineers. They both got kind of like enhanced technology to help them. You know, it needs to happen, people.
It does, and there's no reason why not as well. We know that the TNG actors are all happy to come back. So,
Rutherford's still got a big chunk on his face. Geordie's had proper eye implants done now.
Depends on where you grab him from. He could have gone back in time from the next gen day. Have some fun with it, whatever you want. And plus, his little eyepieces we've seen in First Contact, they do telescope in and stuff. So, yeah,
they do. So then Mariner's flashback, and this is where she gets to hang out with Delta Shift, which obviously has been a running thing throughout the show. And it's
Delta
good
Shift is basically the same, aren't they?
Yeah, it's good to bring back that tension.
One that has a pirate patch.
Yeah. It's fun to like revisit that kind of rivalry that we get with them and everything. And there's all these snipes they have at each other throughout it.
And I also love the fact they've got their version of Boimler, who's just so purple.
It's the same. There's a version of all of them.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. It was the fact the Boynton one is like, come on, you're so much younger. Come on, Skippy, come on through. It's like, and he gets up to them and goes, I don't feel so great. My boat hasn't like healed properly. He's like, go on, like you young whippersnapper. I'd love to be as young as you. And even when his legs falls off, it's like, just grow a new one. I'm done being old now, which is the most Mariner thing ever.
Yeah, that's the fun. Obviously, it's they're aging, and it's like, well, he's young, so he can survive it longer if we make him do the difficult bit.
And then the guy's just up the top going, hey, I found another one which makes you younger.
And you do have that grotty thing, like you say, where the leg regrows, but it regrows wrong and everything. Yeah, that's right.
Then falls off. But it's just, okay, we'll get Dr. Tenor to grow you a new one. And I'm thinking, don't let Nog hear this.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe this is set after that, so maybe let's fan canon that Dr. Bashir, after going through that with Nog, Dr. Bashir worked on it and came up with leg regrowing technology. Yeah.
I sort of assumed it was like with Nog, is because there was nerve damage or something they couldn't get to or something like that. I don't know.
Something like I'm sure they do explain it.
Yeah, I think there was there was a specific issue, and they revealed also it was partly psychological, obviously. So yeah, it's you can bluff that one through, I think.
Yeah, we'll let it go. But I like to think Dr. Bashir invented a brand new technology, and that's what I'm going with until we're told otherwise.
Hey, I love a bit of headcanon.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
back in the main thrust of the plot then. So the fact that we've had Tendi all the way through bringing up this story about the turbo lift, and it's been shot down, and it turns out that the moss, the sentient moss that's the danger in this episode, actually wants to hear the story.
Yeah.
So
it grabs hold of them. No, you're not leaving till I hear what the green one has to say.
yeah. And so we finally get the story, which is just them hanging out and having a laugh in the turbo lift.
Turbo lift gets stuck at the end, and it's sort of at the end of Second Contact.
Yeah.
After the ball there been going mad and everything, and there's tar all over the place because you even see them cleaning it off the walls.
Yeah, it's good. Like we always said, like eventually Lower Decks will get to the stage where it's back referencing itself rather than
and right at
anything
the end
specific. But
and right at the end of it, I love it's like it's season 1 engineer Chaps, is it?
Phillips.
Shack. Oh, Billups.
No, the main engineer, like the
Security, you mean?
Security, sorry,
Shax.
yes, sorry, Shax, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so Shax who opens up the door, and it's kind of it felt like a nod, even though it's just one like frame basically. It felt like a nod to Series 1 Shax because he's kind of evolved and kind of mellowed.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's like,
he did.
It's like, yeah, I did this myself.
And then it turns out that it is the Vendorians again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, should we let them go yet? No, they seem to be quite happy getting on. Let's let them enjoy it a bit.
Yeah.
It's the Vendorians that have been blocking the communicators. So how often have the Vendorians been responsible for this in caves?
Well, that's the question we have to ask ourselves.
Well, you have to look at it. Well, in
Star
theory, they're possibly behind at least 33%. Because we have 3 cave stories. Well, we've got 50% because we've got 4 different cave stories, and they're responsible for 2 of them.
It's true.
Also, like I think this isn't going out on a limb or headcanoning at all, but I think in Heart of Stone they were working with the shapeshifters.
Well, they could have been. It'd make sense, and maybe they were responsible for that weird water thing in the aforementioned Wesley episode.
Yeah.
There you go. It's all making sense now. And they were the old guy who wanted to get drunk on the stuff they were using to disinfect the wound.
Maybe so. So that's what led us, or led Elliot. It was Elliot who twigged to this, that this isn't the first appearance of the Vendorians.
Yeah, this is the second appearance ever. So it made sense.
That we know of.
Well, it's the second time that they actually referenced.
Yeah. But they could have been everywhere all the time.
Well, we do know they're responsible for the Warp 6 hoax.
The Warp 6 hoax?
Yeah, that's mentioned. That they're responsible for the Warp 6 hoax. Because it was just a hoax. They did it for a laugh.
Do you think is that a reference then to the speed limit thing?
Yeah.
Ah, right.
Yeah,
well.
To the TNG episode, yeah.
I like it if that's been retconned that was a hoax.
Yeah, they've retconned
because they certainly do ignore it after that.
Exactly.
Well, they've retconned it now in this episode. That
I think at the time there was an episode shortly after that where they do go. It's like, and because of blah blah blah, speed restrictions don't apply in this area, or because of the kind of like
that happened a lot
because of the urgency of the mission. Yeah, they mentioned it for a little while, and then they basically just go, fuck it, let's just forget it.
It's also at the start of Voyager, and that's why Voyager has it said the cells come up for when it goes to warp, because it was designed not to affect in the same way.
I just love it. Like, for a little while they're going like, oh, what are we going to have an excuse for getting around that now? Okay, we'll use this, and then we'll use this, then we'll sod it. Let's just pretend it never happened.
Forget it.
Yeah,
it
let's just
was
not
a
bother
silly
with it.
idea. But now it's been retconned. It was just a hoax by the Vendorians.
Well, I'm happy about that. Yes, the Vendorians first appeared then in The Survivor from the animated series. And yeah, I was thinking this episode's going to be all about morality plays. Because, they say, oh, we failed the Vendorians' morality test. And I thought, oh, that must be what I mean, I've seen The Survivor before, but I couldn't remember it that well. But it's not really. It is, however, I would say a fairly interesting episode. I enjoyed watching it again.
I mean, I will say, guys, if I go away on a mission and I'm presumed dead for how many years was it? 5 years? 10? Five years, I think it was. They mentioned 5 years. Yeah. If I'm away for 5 years and you beam me up and I'm in front of two of you, I hope you're a little bit more happy, like a bit more surprised and happy to see me. Like they basically go, it's like, oh yeah, you just been on a mission. It's like, how you been? They really, like, it felt like they'd written basically a 45-minute episode or an hour-long episode, whatever. I think 15 minutes the original series were roughly. It feels like they've written that episode and then just cut chunks out. They go, oh, you just cut the bit where they're surprised to see him. Just move straight to like, oh, you're back, cool. I think
there's a little bit of that.
I think that's the nature if you've got what were the 25 minutes to animated series, and you've also got the titles are included in that, so you probably only got about 22 minutes for your story.
Yeah, but I would have just cut to it's like, oh my God, you're back. God, your fiance, I would, love to see you after all this time. And just go straight to, if you're going to, but just don't have no reaction at all. I'd be really pissed if I've been missing for 5 years. We go, oh, hey, how you doing, Squee?
But it's weird, isn't it? Because like the way they talk about him, they're like, it's Carter Winston. It's Carter Winston. And you're like, oh, is this Carter Winston someone we're meant to know? But then we do get like a bit of a backstory for him.
The thing is, though, at this period, it's still established that the Federation doesn't use money.
Yeah.
Yet Carter Wilson has made a fortune many times over and saved 12 Federation planets with his fortune. It's like, why hasn't the Federation saved its own planets?
That's a very good point.
And the point I would like to make is they've got this guy in for one episode and they give him like the coolest name ever, Carter Winston. I mean, that sounds like a hero. One. That should have been a main character. That should have been one of the captains. Like, do you know, Jonathan Archer was nearly called Jeffrey Archer until they realized there was an English author and corrupt politician and thief and convicted prisoner. I just like to bring that up whenever I can.
No,
but yeah, it's like, he should have been Carter Wilson. Like that's a much cooler name.
It is a good name. It is Carter Winston. I bet there's a Carter Winston novel somewhere. I bet someone's written something about him.
If not, I'm going to pen it after this very episode.
Yeah, but Spock's having none of it. Spock's like, right, I want your fingerprints. I want to check your piss. We need to know exactly.
Well, it's checking that it's him because he's been missing for 5 years and turned up and looks exactly the same as he did 5 years ago. He's even got the same fucking clothes on.
That's a fair point. And then we get introduced to his fiancée, Anne. And he just packs her in straight away. And she does this, which was actually joked about in that very short treks. The way they just sort of turn and look at the camera in the animated series, like, yeah, and you see the tears coming up, yeah.
I mean, talk about like a character, like a female character not being given any agency though. Like she's there goes like, oh my God, oh, he says he wants space. And then because they're going like, okay, fake McCoy, but he's there goes like, yeah, I'd give him it then. Better leave him alone then. Do you think he wants more attention from you when he's just dumped you? I mean, it's like, Jesus Christ. A, harsh, and B, she's going, oh, well, you are a man. Like, it did feel a little bit like that. Because,
it's not
the most sensitive portrayal of a woman who's been through grief and then got her man back and then he's dumping her. And it's like, I don't think Troy would give this advice, is what I'm saying.
No.
Even fake Troy would at least dress it up, surely, to make
But
it
like, you
sound
can't
like
expect a man like Caddo Winston to wait round for 5 years.
Now, if they'd worded it like that, then I might have been on board because Carl
Do
Winston
we
is a cool
honestly
enough guy.
believe that she's just waited around for 5 years when she thinks that he's dead anyway?
If you're waiting for Caddo Winston, you'd
Winston,
wait
you'll
for
wait.
5 years.
You wait eternity for Carl Winston.
Especially with that tash.
Gives you something to hold on to.
But it turns out it is not Carter Winston. It is a Vendorian.
Dun.
Yeah,
And
the thing is, though, McCoy's carrying out his medical, and he goes, "That's strange. I've never seen readings like this. Oh, it can't be you. It must be the equipment." No, you're doing the test to check that it is him, and you test to say, "No, it's not."
Yeah.
You're getting dodgy readings, and you go, "Oh, it must be the equipment. It is you."
It's almost like there's this sort of cult of celebrity around him, like we can't possibly question Carter Winston, you know, like
yeah,
like
I mean,
you read all them
fair to me, though, you say
stories
it like
about like I remember seeing a thing about David Beckham were meant to get a parking ticket, and the guy who was writing the parking ticket threw it away when he realized it was David Beckham, and it's like, first of all, just because he's David Beckham don't mean he's allowed to park there. Second, in the time it took you to write it, he made enough money to pay that probably 100 times over. So
he
don't worry about
money.
giving him a parking ticket.
Yeah,
you know,
he made enough money in that second, or in the time it took him to write that, to pay that guy's wages for a year. Forget the parking ticket.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like that's absolutely, but maybe that's a bit of what we're going on. Like, oh, you can't say Caddo Winston's not who he says he is.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, again, when you say that, I'm with you and say I wouldn't question Carter Winston.
But
I mean,
you
even when
should.
it turned out to be an alien, even though
You should, because he's a Vendorian and he gets Kirk with his little blah 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 thing.
What I'm saying is, even if I'd seen him as a Vendorian, if he turned back into Carter Winston, I'm going, I'm sorry, Carter. Sorry. I thought I saw you turning into a Vendorian, but clearly you're Carter Winston. Like, you know, I would never question you. I'm going down the sick bay now.
But then when he's Kirk, in inverted commas, he orders them into the neutral zone, which I think is quite cool that we're bringing the Romulans back into it. You know, we've got references to them, and we see them a little bit later on, and the ships and everything, but this is where his plan...
no, the ships are exactly as they should be.
They are actually, yeah. They're the Klingon ones where they shared the model, but...
Yeah, and they got them ships because they shared the cloaking technology with the Klingons. It was an exchange.
Can we talk about the look of the Romulans? Because, like, it's the most, like, it sort of looks like when they tried to do... like hippie Vulcans, like that's what they look like. It's not like it actually looks like Leonard Nimoy from the first film where he's got his kind of hair long hair. You know, it's just really weird. It's just the most hippie Romulan I've ever seen. It doesn't look like any version of Romulans used in the original series and later. It's its own kind of beast. They fair play to them. They went their own way. But I've never thought of the Romulans being a bit kind of hippie and cool looking. That looked like a hipster.
Until we met Elnor.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, many years later. I'm just saying.
Many years later.
Even then, it was kind of tied back, so it sort of looked a bit like Shaolin warrior with the long hair.
True.
You know.
But this is where the Vendorians' plan, such as it is, comes apart a little bit, because it's like, right, you're going to subdue Kirk, you're going to pretend to be Kirk, you're going to send him to the neutral zone, but then Kirk wakes up and you've stopped being Kirk, and Kirk goes, no, I don't like this. So it's like,
take us out straight away.
Yeah.
When have they ever, when they've been taken over by an alien, like just accepted it that quick? Again, it seems like another point where it's like, right, you need to edit that shit where Kirk questions anything. Just go straight to him going, it's like, oh, but you did. Let me show you the video, which has been neatly edited, which isn't weird at all. No, the video's edited down. And then he goes, oh, well, I must have done then. Okay, off to sick bay. Like, they never take it that easily in any other
No,
version.
it's true.
Well, that can't be so. I wasn't there. I was in, like, my quarters. You know, it's,
this is something we talked about when we have talked about the other animated episodes, is that it is like they're moving at double speed.
Yeah,
And possibly because what they did was they got the writers from the original series who are used to writing longer form TV. And it's like, right, okay, that's a great 50-minute script. You're just going to have to cut it in half. So
I think that's what happened. That's what it felt like.
What's this bit you've put in? Oh, nuance. Right, that's going out.
Enough time for a person to get from one emotional state to another. No, we'll just have them just flipping. That's fine.
Yeah, we don't have time for this stuff in a 25-minute show. But then it goes and takes out McCoy. And you do get this explanation, which I question this. Because I think it's Spock who says they have these shape-shifting abilities and they can change into things that are the same general size and mass. But then the next thing we see is it disguised as a biobed in sickbay, which is much bigger. And also the Vendorians are like a streak of piss. There's no mass to them whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that's sort of like...
my explanation. I've got one. Sorry.
Go on.
It's the same sort of thing, a bit like the changelings, how we saw Odo change into the size of a rodent. I think they've got a separate pocket dimension for extra mass or holding on.
But that's fine with Odo and the changeling. But in this, they specifically say that it's the same size or mass. They could have just said they turn into anything.
What he does is he just becomes the hollow outline of the biobed. If you pushed at any point, it would just go through.
Yeah,
because he just
spread himself so thin.
Still not the same size though. He says
no,
size
the same
and
mass. Yeah, but if he's those bits are so thin. If you add that size, those thin sheets of him together, it's the same size and mass.
Well, maybe not the same
like
mass.
we're rules lawyering a little bit now, but
yes, I'm headcanning like mad to make this work.
I just think it's silly that we've just discussed how they cut out all the nuance and things like that, but they go to the extent of making up a rule for the Vendorians, which is then completely ignored.
Also, as a writer, you don't make up a rule that's going to make your life 3 times as hard.
Okay, right. So, okay, the biobed's okay then.
No. I'm saying like
the biobed is fine.
Elliot says the biobed's fine.
The biobed is fine because I think it's close enough in size that it could stretch itself to that. I'm not going to go with same mass because the mass can change because it's made of Vendorian as opposed to made of metal and other shit. So the mass is going to be different. But I can go with it having the same size. I think it could spread itself to that. But I do have a problem with the next thing it stretches itself.
So do I.
I've got a question on your mass thing because you're saying that because it's metal as opposed to flesh. But then you're assuming, which it's not written into the stuff which they say, that what they turn into, the mass is the same. Like so. Just because they're representing metal doesn't mean that their mass is the same as metal.
Yeah.
So it could be that as soon as someone lies on their bed, they just go straight through.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're definitely justifying like a motherfucker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Elliot says, we'll get on to what it turns into in a minute. But I found really interesting, and I do think this is a really interesting idea, is when Anne confronts him. And he talks about like when we take on the form of someone, we gradually start to take on their memories and personalities, and I found that a really fascinating idea that we've not really done with shapeshifters before. That if you're going to impersonate it, you to some extent you start to become that thing. And I thought that was a really interesting concept, and we don't have a lot of time to explore it, but I would quite like to see that at some point. Bring a Vendorian into bring them into Strange New Worlds or something, and have them start to absorb the personality of someone and how that person's loved ones feel about it. And
now you could.
I think that'd be fascinating.
You could bring him into Strange New Worlds because in this episode, Kirk specifically says that it's an out of bounds planet, because they do shapeshift, the duplicitous. They have what else is it that they have as part of the culture?
3 willies.
No, it's sort of like they just don't mix with them because the lie and all that as part of the culture and the deceitful.
But if they did have 3 willies, it'd have to be 3 small willies because they'd have to be the same size and mass as 1 willy.
No, because 1 willy is large, and that's the deceitful part. Actually, when they shrink that down to the actual willy size.
They're just like Centaurans from Babylon 5, and it's them tentacles of the willies.
I like to think they've got the 3 willies, and they're absolutely huge. And then, as soon as you kind of get busy with them, they turn back to the natural form. The 3 willies disappear to this micro willy.
I haven't given it any thought about getting busy with the Vendoran's willy, but if that's what you want to do, Squeak, we are not here to judge.
If you haven't been thinking of that, you haven't lived, my friend. That's all I'm saying.
Well, see, now I'm thinking, if Elliot's saying that the tentacles are the willies, it does put a different spin on the scenes where we see them with McCoy and Kirk earlier on.
And I see you doing that motion, gesturing to hold their one huge space testicle.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But they could make it into 2 smaller, better equal mass.
But the point I was getting here was that because they mention it in nowadays, the planet Out of Bounds, you could very easily do a Vendorian episode in Strange New Worlds of why it became Out of Bounds.
Yeah.
Because it's set beforehand and it's perfect. Is that
that would be good, yeah.
And I sort of love the fact that I mean, if I'm correct, has any other show apart from Lower Decks brought any aliens originally established in the animated series into live action? I don't
not that I'm aware of.
Qatar's Dr. Tano's species is from animated show into it originally.
Dr. Tana, but we haven't seen one of them in live action. In Star Trek 4 we did. There was an extra who was a cat person. We've not seen that weird tribble killer thing. They should probably bring that in at some point.
But I mean, certainly the amount of original animated series, kind of aliens they brought in from Lower Decks is really expanding the universe. Like they're now reused, as Elliot's saying, in other property, like in Strange New Worlds would be a great.
Lower Decks has always had that. Animated series has always had that weird sort of stance in terms of whether it's canon or not. Because at one point, Gene Roddenberry said, "No, it isn't. It doesn't count." Blah 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 blah. And then somebody said, "Oh, we'll pay you to show it again." He was like, "Oh, absolutely, it counts."
It's canon.
Yeah, it's definitely canon now. I think
there's one episode that's not counted as canon still, isn't there? I can't remember which one it is.
It was it was at one point the threshold from Voyager where.
No, I mean of the animated series.
The animated series. No, it was the other way around. It was yesteryear. The Spock episode was always counted as canon, even when the others weren't.
Right. No, there's still one of them. I think it's the Practical Joker's not classed as canon.
Maybe. Anyway, we'll find out. We'll get to it one day. So then this is where the Vendorian turns into something else, which is the exact same size and mass as a human or a biobed.
Now, there's 2 ways of looking at this, and one of them is have a word with yourselves, and the other one, okay, I can just about go with that.
Oh, go on, let's go with the okay, we can go with that.
That it actually turns itself into the broken circuit.
Which circuit?
Because Scotty's trying to repair the circuits because the Vendoran had sabotaged engineering is why they've got no shields.
Yeah.
And Scotty needs 2 hours to repair all the shields. But the Vendoran repairs the shield for sort of like the front shield that they need to protect themselves.
Okay.
So there's that one that becomes the circuitry,
so that fixes the problem, and it's actually the actual deflector shield that saves them.
Yeah. But you've got the other one that the Vendorian becomes a deflector shield.
Which is what?
And it's
which
sort
is
of
what
like,
they tell us.
yeah, and I think you've got to go with it becomes the circuit makes more sense.
It does, yeah. I like that actually. I like that you've put the thought into coming up with that, because
It isn't what
yeah.
the episode says.
And again, this I think is another symptom of doing these shorter episodes and not being able to flesh the ideas out. So if you remember when we did talk about yesteryear, there's a big issue in that, and when they're explaining the time travel, that basically the timeline that they destroy in that episode is the correct timeline, but they decide to destroy it for some reason,
yeah.
And I'm sure had it been an hour-long episode, it would have been dealt with much more.
Probably.
But it comes across as
And the issue is, like you say, it's the action. They did, for all intents and purposes, animated series is season 4, and it was written as season 4 by the same writers, but they had to cut every episode in half.
But again,
Now,
if
you were doing this nowadays, if you had the similar situation nowadays, there'd be 2 seasons of the animated series, full seasons, and every story would be 2 episodes long.
Probably.
To get the whole story in, instead of going, no, we're going to throw half of it in the bin.
I would say that with the way they become better at writing concise, like animation now, like the amount of story they cover in some 20-minute race,
but it's the nature of how these episodes were written.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, if we were going to do it today, I think they would know how.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to make it today from this, you'd do them as 2 parters. You wouldn't
most
go.
likely.
Everyone has got like animated shows. They were for kids. Every episode had to be standalone. They had to be. You could have recurring characters, but everyone stayed the same through a season. There was no character development in an animated show, so you could just, as kids, you could turn it on, and it didn't matter where you were in the season.
Absolutely, yeah.
You could just watch it.
The one thing I would say is that I love about this, the animated series of Star Trek, is not only is they are genuinely really inventive stories, really interesting. They always go in different direction. So some feel like original series, some feel like a drug-fueled nightmare. Yeah. Some are just bonkers and funny. Others like this seem like they've chopped vast amounts out, but it's always entertaining. Like, it's entertaining for what it is and for what it's not at the same time. Like, I'm not dissing it at all, but it's like, let's face it, again, with episodes like this, there's clearly huge chunks you need to add to make it a really coherent story.
But the
bones of it are there, and it's just so much fun.
Yeah, there's enough interesting ideas that you go, wow, this actually was trying to do something,
And back when animation wasn't seen as like,
and you had like
that you could go as in depth with animation as they know you can do now.
And it's like you have the parts with Anna and all that, where she's confronting him, Mr. Van Doren, and she's going, "You won't trick me again. I know what you are." And then he has to trick her again by telling her he's taken all the memories, and she falls for it. So she was tricked again.
But then he agrees to stand trial, and she gets to guard him, which is very nice.
Yeah, because, we want to make sure the woman just gives up everything for the guy, just to make sure she's got zero agency.
No, she doesn't give up everything for the guy. She gives up everything for Cat or Winston.
Yeah.
Okay, now you say that. Okay, sold.
Exactly. So, I think that wraps us up for this week then. So next week, it's the penultimate episode of Lower Decks. Will we see a return of the mysterious ship? I'm betting yes.
I think we're going to get a two-parter.
That'd be nice.
Because we normally see, because Lower Decks does seem to work like that. You get a 2-part ending, and there'll be a cliffhanger that'll be wrapped up in episode 1 of season 5, where
I won't be surprised.
Someone will think someone's dead. They might even do a parody of Strange New Worlds, and you'll have half the crew taken prisoner at the end of it, and they'll wrap it up in the first minute.
But in the meantime, you can get in touch with us. We're at RetrekPod on X, retrekpod@gmail.com. We're all over the rest of social media. Elliot has Retrek Model Studios on YouTube.
And I will do some work on that submarine soon. I need to finish it because I've got the next project ready to start, and I'm quite excited to get into it. But I am finishing the submarine first when I get time, and I'm away. I'm out again this weekend, so
there we go.
My time's getting a bit hectic to get to me table.
Okay, and I'm on YouTube with Kingy's Toy Box, where we're looking at Dungeons and Dragons if we ever get our next issues delivered, but watch this space on that. Dr. Squee, what have we got going on with the Dr. Squee show?
Well, obviously, we're getting near Halloween.
Ooh, spooky.
So, this episode coming up next Tuesday, I'm going to be talking to the director and writer of Do Not Disturb, a haunting horror film, which is something I've just arranged. It's a psychedelic horror film wrapped in a fragile, failed marriage and cannibalism's comes to theaters and digital this November, so we'll be talking all about that and getting our Halloween on.
Excellent.
Not wrong with a bit of cannibalism on a Wednesday night.
It'll be Tuesday when the Dr. Squee goes out.
Yeah.
So that's a Tuesday.
Okay.
Sorry, did I put the banner up?
Well, Tuesday
7 till 8, sw20radio.co.uk or drsquee.com, where you can also you can get loads of stuff on there anyway.
And thanks for trekking with us this time. We will see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Drag off an LLAP.
Fascinating.
I think that was a pretty paradigmatic episode of